Well, here I stand. Wait, that's a song. Yes, here I stand. And Reverend, I have to say, I don't know how you do it week after week. I've been writing and rewriting this, and it's when I'm not really, you try to put yourself into what you do, and it makes one feel vulnerable. And I went through recently, or for some time ago, a crisis of being, which I know nobody else out there has ever gone through. No moments of self-doubt or anything like that. But as I worked my way through it, I was forced to look at my life and what I was doing. It was also a crisis because part of it was about my work or non-work at that moment, as I was developing my own consultation business around being organized. So, yes, I'm one of those people. Everything has to be perfect. And so, it's been remarked by some that here in America, one of the first things folks ask you after they ask your name and you've been introduced is, so what do you do? Well, that was like a moment for me, lots of those. So it really made me start to think about, well, what do I do and who am I? And am I just that job title? And if you don't have the job title, are you anything? Are you anybody at all? Because in America, that's what we do. We don't even take vacations. So we're all about the work. We have the lowest rate of vacation on the planet, and it's not a good thing, researchers have shown. So, in looking at myself, my life, I started to think, what do I do? Am I making a difference anywhere in the world? So I've also asked, why am I here? Why are any of us here? What difference am I making? And I'm not sure that I found a satisfactory answer yet, but I keep asking and I keep searching because that is my nature. As my mother says, why you always have to ask a question? And my husband says, can't you just answer the question without asking a question? But, I have to tell you, just as we did this morning, each week here at Unity, we sing Use Me. Show me what I must do. And I don't know about you, but I have sung that song with fervor and emotions for years, waiting to get an answer. I have been waiting for a message from the universe, a billboard out there, a vision trying to show me what my true purpose is. I want to see the burning bush tell me, Sabrina, you are supposed to go and fill in the blank. But no such luck. No burning bushes, although somebody probably would have called 911 and put it out. No billboards, no signage. So what did I do? What I always do. I jump in, I do whatever I see must be done, because I always have, and that is who I am. I always put my hand up in the air, volunteer where possible, because I've learned through Unity that I am here to replicate the divine just as we are all meant to, and to be our brother's keeper. I've raised a child, being a listening ear and shoulder to cry on for friends, done volunteering work, and served on different Love in Action teams over the years here. But my most rewarding hand in the air turned out to be a young boy who needed another presence in his life. It really wasn't so much a hand in the air moment as it was just one of those things that occur in life. When you happen to become someone's friend, you often become the friend of their children too. This little boy was irresistibly, and still is, irresistibly cute. His name is Gavin, and initially, I just thought he was the best thing because he came to pottery where I had met his mother at the studio where she and I worked, and he made a little bowl, and She said, "Oh, is that for me?" He said, "No, it's for her," pointing at me. Well, what girl could resist? He was just the cutest and the sweetest. And as time went on, however, he began having behavioral issues. He would have fits and violent outbursts in school and at home, and sometimes attack his siblings. The outbursts mystified his parents and the doctors they took him to, and they could find no answer to the problem, even though they had given him tests, and he'd seen the psychiatrist, and they'd taken him to the emergency room, etc. His mom would come to Pottery and tell us one of the latest episodes, and would be in tears. So, to give my friend a break, I began having Gavin spend time with me and us doing things together. I gave him Reiki so he could help him heal. We went to the metaphysical bookstore. I introduced him to crystals, and we went out to lunch on our little outings. And I had him eat dessert first. My rule in life is dessert first, especially if it's chocolate cake. All right? So there we were, dessert first, and he was like, "Oh my God, I've never done this before. Should I tell Mom?" I go, "It's up to you, but we could make it our little secret." So I also taught him to meditate, to help him calm, to go within as he was able, and quiet his mind when he felt the anger coming on, to simmer down and be soothed, to hopefully feel the presence. We went swimming, had food adventures. I probably had much more fun than he did, doing all those things together. It was great. I was always wanting to keep him longer rather than send him home, but of course I had to. And after a number of years, his family moved to Texas, but we've kept in touch with phone calls and emails, and he's added me to his Google Friends. So his mom has him call me when he's upset, and we talk about whatever he wants to and how he's feeling and doing in his life, and his mother says it seems to calm him. So, I remember the first time I got the call, I was driving home from choir, and had her number, and she's like, "He won't do his homework, and he's really upset. I need you to talk to him." So I pulled over, and we chatted, and he seemed to be okay. Anyway, this past June, he graduated to a new school, so I sent him a card congratulating him on his academic and swim team accomplishments, because he had been on the swim team as well. And I sent him as a gift a book on yoga for children. I recently received a thank you cards from him and his mom, which brought huge smiles to my face. Because, kids are wonderful, and it's great that when they're doing well. The card from his mom had pictures of him in his yoga poses, and I was so proud, and I felt I was just bursting. And pictures of him doing other things. And in the card, she said, "Thank you for being an inspirational presence in Gavin's life. While in Virginia and at a distance, you have been part of the positive force that has helped Gavin through the last years. I really appreciate having you as a friend and love you for who you are, and hope all is well with your life." I don't think I have ever felt so touched by anything. It was wonderful. And it made me realize that this card is my billboard that I've been waiting for all along. It's my burning bush because it's burning with love. It showed me that rather than looking outward for meaning and purpose, I can fill that gap with myself, because my purpose is to do what needs to be done, and I am enough. So I was enough for him, it turned out. I was able to give him what he needed at that time, and hopefully to others. So I say, let us give ourselves to life and do what must be done. We don't need to ask if we have the tools or abilities, because we have what we need through Spirit, because we are the children of God. We are created in God's likeness and image and endowed with its purpose. It was appropriate that I gave him the book on yoga, because the word yoga means oneness with God or joined with God. So I'm happy that he practices his yoga every day, and he told me he's made a meditation space in his room and he meditates every day. So each day I practice yoga, both spiritually and physically, and I continue to do what I see must be done, not wait for someone else. My prayer is that we all know that we are enough and can go forth and bless our world. The New Thought writer Ernest Holmes says, "You will never discover anything outside you greater than you yourself are." And I hope you imprint that message on your heart. Blessings.
Good morning. Thank you, Sabrina. I want you to know that today is Sabrina's wedding anniversary. So we want to acknowledge. And Ed, is that Ed?
Yeah.
Oh, he won't, okay, her husband won't stand up, but Ed, happy anniversary. Oh, there he is. I was looking at the wrong guy.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, and I have two versions, one in case I forgot my glasses, so you all can probably read this too. So, as you know, my name is Troy Fridy. I am absolutely delighted to be here and to serve as a member of the Board of Trustees. I've been on the board for about 4 years, and I have successfully, up until this moment, avoided this very role. But we know that Spirit directs all things, and I'm here, so we will see how things go today. So good morning, beloved ones, and turn to your neighbor and say, "You are fabulous." Now turn to them again and say, "So am I." So before I get started, I want to acknowledge that I have to be on my best behavior as much as possible. My mama is here today. Mommy. My mother and my auntie, Karen, they drove down from Delaware this morning. Thank you for coming. So for the past several weeks, as you know, if you've been coming, our beloved Reverend Sylvia has been talking to us about transformation. Is my sound okay? Okay. I was supposed to do that discreetly, but... So she's been talking about transformation of mind and transformation of heart and transformation of soul. So in keeping with that theme, I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about my own personal journey of ongoing transformation. So the title is pretty long. The title of my talk that Claude asked me about is called Losing Edge and Creating Power Through Vulnerability and Forgiveness. So my dear friend Anthony told me I have something called edge. So at first, I'm thinking that was a cool thing, like swagger or being hip, style, all those things. So as I proudly turned to him to say thank you, he quickly made it clear that that was not such a good thing. Yeah, I'm saying thank you to him. He's saying, yeah, not so much. But by edge, what he meant was that I was closed and not very vulnerable, and so guarded that I consistently offered what he called a strong response to anything or comment I perhaps did not like. And it usually took the form of a smart aleck or a sarcastic remark. Some of you in my life probably know that very well from personal experience. But the thing is, I knew that about myself and just accepted that as part of my charm. The harsh reality is that edge was something that has kept, and sometimes today keeps me closed and unwilling to be fully open to spirit. So for the longest time, I thought it was a defense mechanism, was giving me some sort of power, protection from hurt or rejection. Yet when I heard Anthony describe my character, it reminds me of how my mother described me as a child. She said, I was a pretty good child. I was respectful and courteous and kind, much like you see today. But she would always say, but that mouth of yours, that's the one thing that always got you popped pretty regularly. Although it seems to have played out well into my adulthood, it was something that I actually came to embrace. And as I began to monitor my behavior and to think through situations that challenged me, I recognized the truth about what edge really was. And when I have the edge, I recognize what I do. So my whole posture changes and my eyebrow raises, especially the left one, and I stare, just waiting to attack or defend. And even though I tell myself in my head not to say the thing that I know I should not say, y'all know what happens, right? I say the thing I shouldn't say, which leads me down a path completely different than what that experience could have been if I were fully open and vulnerable. The point is that this behavior and mindset manifests in a way that keeps me from my good. And as I continued in reflection, I became aware of what edge really means. It's ego distracting from God's energy. Right? Thank you. So originally I said that was ego destroys God energy, but I was quickly and rightfully reminded that nothing and no one can destroy God's energy, not even my ego. So it's this edge that I'm seeking to lose, and I want to relay a quick story about how that has begun to manifest in my life with a specific personal story. Hold on, Mom. So for a long time, I've been holding the thought that I wanted to transform my relationship with my biological father. It's a relationship that's been non-existent for my entire life. And even though I held this thought, I really didn't do much about it. But Spirit, as is always the case, put me in a series of events that changed the course of that. So the first thing that happened was last year, about this time, I attended a birthday party that Anthony hosted. And it wasn't a traditional party, it was actually a public dialogue between Anthony and his biological father. They had not known one another for the first 20 years of Anthony's life. And when they did become acquainted with one another, they were separated for an additional 21 years. The purpose of the party was called Breaking the Shell, and it was designed to demonstrate the power of vulnerability and authenticity in creating new relationships and cultivating mutual love and growth. Wow, right? So as Anthony and his father, Harold, explained their respective roles in the process of transforming their relationship, naturally, I thought about the relationship with my own father. During the meeting or during the party, each of the participants, Anthony and Harold, read a letter that each of them had written to the other in the other's voice. Very powerful. During the meeting, the party, I was trying to maintain my protective shell and my edge. But before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face and I'm blubbering. And after the event, I'm in a powerful embrace with Harold, Anthony's father, who gave me very comforting words about needing to forgive, but not only forgive my father, but forgive myself. But I still took no action to reach out to my father, even though it was an inspiring event. So Spirit said, okay, let me give you another invitation. So Spirit gave me another message or invitation, and that came right here last year at Board Sunday when our fellow congregant, Denise Hart, also talked about the transformation and forgiveness of her relationship with her father. So moved was I by that service that immediately following that message and service, I and 2 other congregants each made a vow to reach out to people in our lives in order to begin a healing process. I with my father, and the other 2 with the people in their lives. 3 months later, I finally wrote the first draft of the letter to my biological father. And I can just tell you there was some serious edge in that letter. And while I was happy to start that process, I knew that I couldn't send that letter. After talking to some folks, my best friend and some other friends, I was asked a simple question, but it was an important question, and it was simply this: what was I seeking by reaching out and by writing the letter? And naturally, you would think it would be a pretty simple answer to that question, but for me, it wasn't. I didn't know what it was that I was seeking. Was I looking to vent my pent-up anger and disappointment for the years of not being involved? Was I looking for an apology? So it became the fundamental question that took me another month or 2 or 3 to answer. And because it's a process of learning, unfolding, and reflecting, it finally dawned on me that I simply wanted my dad. I wanted a relationship with my father. So if that were the case, and if that were true, I knew I had to change the tone and the approach. After all, if you were to get an angry letter blaming you for all the ills of the world, would you want to be in a relationship with that person? Probably not. So with that renewed consciousness, I began to change the tone and the narrative around that correspondence, because now I felt open to whatever this entire experience was going to bring. So if you will indulge me for just a moment, I'd like to share just a little bit of the letter that I shared with my dad. So give me 1 second, because I need some water, because it's about to get real quick. So I start the letter by saying, I hope this letter finds you well, in good health and spirits. I do hope that you are happy and healthy. I hardly know what to write. I can only say that for a long time, I've wanted to reach out to you and have a discussion or a conversation or start a dialogue of some kind. I've just never known what to say. I guess I will simply start by saying that my life, while productive, full, and good, missed having a relationship with you. For the past 10 years of my X number and a half, my 47 and a half, I envisioned some Hallmark movie moment when you'd someday realize that you were missing an important element of your life, and you'd want to begin a relationship with the son you hardly acknowledged, barely knew, and from whom you've distanced yourself. In my vision, we'd arrange a meeting and have an Oprah-esque moment, and you'd apologize with great sincerity and tears, and I'd forgive you with equal sincerity and tears, and we'd be best friends for the rest of time, both lamenting the fact that so much time had passed and we did not take advantage of all of those missed opportunities. Then the daydream ended, and I realized that's just a self-created movie version of a more complicated story. Okay, so maybe all the edge wasn't gone. But it's a process. And I think I redeemed myself, however, with the following. I go on to tell my father, it is hard for me to imagine what it must have been like for you all those years ago being presented with a son and the idea of a lifetime commitment that you had not sought. I don't pretend to know what your mindset was or your thought process or your emotional state was at the age of 26, but it could not have been easy. As I mature, I now try to think about what your life was like at that time and how it must have been completely disrupted by baby boy Troy. Honestly, for a long time, I hadn't even considered what it must have been like for you. I was only consumed with what my needs were and how they weren't met as it related to your absence. How many of us think it's all about us? So I went through a variety of emotional states: anger, indifference, hurt, sadness, and delusion. And for much of my life, I actually blamed you for our not having a relationship. I would say things like, he is the adult. He is the one that never wanted a relationship. Or he should take responsibility. Well, I fully and completely abdicated my own responsibility and my own power and acted as if I didn't have a part to play. After all, I was coming from a place of being the wounded little boy, the abandoned son, waiting for daddy to come home, or waiting for him to come to the rescue. Well, that's the story I kept telling myself. So whenever I go on to tell him, whenever I thought about you or was asked about you, I generally responded with a very flippant and dismissive, I don't know, and I don't care. But we all know that was not the truth. And I thought that by angrily dismissing the thought of you and of us, I was creating a protective shell and making it all okay, and that thought somehow made me okay with the fact that I don't know you and that you didn't seem to want to know me. I now know that it was only a cover or a mask for disappointment. So I go on to tell him that I didn't know what idea he had about a relationship with me. I just know that it was increasingly important that I reach out and that I send this letter. My only expectation, I tell him, is that you receive this letter with love and gratitude, the principles on which this letter was written. It's also important for me to let you know that I release all blame that I've harbored and accusations I've assessed and the names I've called you over the years. I really had never been big on the idea of forgiveness when it came to you. It seemed weak, and I felt like I was giving up some sort of protection. After all, I thought my power came from the anger, and I wore it proudly like a badge of honor. As long as I had the anger, I thought, I didn't have to feel the hurt or the fear or the rejection. Of course, I now realize that the power and the healing are in the forgiving and the releasing. While I can't say I'm not still hurt and that I don't long for a different story between us, my intention is to be authentic and to be open to creating a new future. And I ended the letter with an invitation that says this. You may have noticed that I included the title of introduction at the top of this letter. I did that as I want this to be the opening pages of a new story, and it is my sincere hope that your response to this letter will be chapter 1 in that new story. Okay. So I mailed that letter July 25th, 2014, 8 p.m. from Mount Rainier, Maryland. I received a response that was postmarked July 29th, 2014, which tells me he was waiting for me. And his last line in his letter was, "Let's connect soon so we can do some long overdue bonding." This process taught me that being vulnerable does not mean being a victim. It taught me patience, mostly to have patience with myself. And it taught me to know, really know, that the story is not always about me. I recently ran across a quote from Socrates that says, "The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." I must admit that, like a lot of people, I spent a lot of my energy over the past 30 or 40 plus years fighting the old thoughts, old experiences, and old misunderstandings of the truth. But the truth for me is that by losing edge, Spirit has opened me up to be vulnerable, particularly in this communication, and has made it possible for this story to continue to unfold. So I say to you, if you need to heal a relationship, ask for forgiveness, forgive someone else, or just connect with someone, do it. Don't let your ego distract from God's energy. Make the call, write the letter, send the text, email, tweet, Facebook, Instagram, or whatever it is that you do, but begin the process. Lose your edge, gain your power. Namaste.